To start a Nitro RC car, you need to be able to start its engine. This takes the combined efforts of the throttle, the essential screws and needles, carburetor, glow plug and glow starter, and the engine itself. Also, you need to be familiar with the basic tunings of a Nitro car engine before you can get it to work. Here's how to start a Nitro RC car. Adjust the screws. The manifold and engine screws. The reason you need to start by tightening these screws is that they can easily loosen based on the temperature they are exposed to. This is because they are made from metal. A lot of Nitro RC cars are manufactured in warmer regions before they are shipped off to cold regions. This temperature change affects the screws. If these screws are not secured firmly, you might find it really hard to start the engine. These include the RC car's engine screws and the manifold screws. The manifold screws help to secure the car's manifold to its engine. Engine screws ensure that the engine stays in place. Tighten these screws with care. If they are too tight, they might get broken. Overdoing the screwing can also damage their threads. Just ensure that they are airtight enough to prevent an air leak. The idle speed screw. The next screw to focus is the idle speed screw that manages the airflow coming into the carburetor hole. For a nitro engine to work, air has to get into its carburetor. Oxygen provides the necessary blast that makes the engine move really fast. How is air allowed into the engine? When the throttle is pulled and the carburetor is opened, then air flows in. Once you release the throttle servo, the carburetor hole is closed. If the carburetor hole shuts firmly when you release the throttle servo, air can't go into the car engine. As we know, fuel can't function in an engine without oxygen. In other words, the engine can't be ignited without the mixture of fuel and air. So, the hole needs to remain open a little bit. To get this, turn the idle speed screw in a clockwise manner until you get the right opening size. You have to keep pulling and releasing the throttle to check the results. If the carburetor hole is too wide, turn the screw in the anti-clockwise direction to tighten it. Adjusting the high-speed needle. The high-speed screw or needle is in charge of how much fuel is pushed into the carburetor hole from a halt to full throttle. How does it work? When the high-speed screw is turned clockwise, the hole in which fuel passes through will be closed. When the needle is turned anti-clockwise, this hole is opened and fuel goes down to the nitro engine. Just like the idle speed screw, if the high-speed needle is turned too much in the clockwise direction, the fuel that is supposed to flow into the car's engine will be cut off completely. As expected, problems come attached to it. 1. The RC engine becomes dry. This dryness will end up breaking the engine. Another issue is that the airflow into the engine will be considerably higher than the fuel. This combination will end up producing too many explosive blasts. This will happen even when the throttle is in a neutral position. Also, too much of anti-clockwise screwing will allow excess fuel to enter the engine. This may affect your pull start too, as pulling it will turn into a hard task. You might even end up breaking it. Now that you know the importance of the high-speed needle in getting a nitro car to start, you have to ensure that it's set appropriately. The first thing to note is that you are not to keep turning the screw until the hole is completely shut. To get the appropriate lean mixture, turn the high-speed screw at 1/16 increments until you get your desired mixture. Failure to adjust your car's high-speed needle can lead to an unexpected cut of power while accelerating. A malfunctioning idle speed. No smoke coming from the exhaust. Smoke coming from the nitro engine, and many others. Adjusting the low-speed screw. Most times, the low-speed screw or needle comes preset from the manufacturing company. So, there might be no need for any form of adjustment. We said might because you will need to adjust this screw if you've tampered with it before. Also, since it works together with the idle screw, you will need to adjust it if you have touched the idle speed screw. Ensure that you set the lower speed screw by turning it clockwise until your car engine is not sputtering when in an idle mode. To access this needle, open the carburetor hole and take out the air filter attached to it. In this hole, you will notice where a small fuel tube is sticking out. and on its opposite side is an equally small needle. Do a little bit unscrewing till the needle tip is visible. Now, go on to screw it back up until it's about 0.9 mm to 1.1 mm from reaching the small fuel tube. Check your radio and adjust the throttle servo. First, ensure that there are batteries in the nitro car and radio. Ensure that both are switched on. Now, pull and release the car throttle several times. It is advisable to have that air filter in the carburetor hole removed before doing this. This is to ensure that the hole is opening and closing as it should when the throttle is controlled. If you notice that something's off, ensure that you adjust it immediately. You can make use of your transmitter for any corrections necessary. Proceed to the flywheel. Here, you will be needing a glow plug wrench. In order to test the pull start, the glow plug has to come off. Using the glow plug wrench, turn the glow plug in an anti-clockwise direction. With the glow plug removed, this might be the best time to unflood the engine. If you have excess fuel in the engine, you will find it quite hard to pull the car's pull start. Be sure to let out as much as you can. Then pull your pull start. As you do so, the engine starts to pop and the excess fuel will come out. If your pull start is hard, don't start exerting pressure as you might end up breaking it. Back to the flywheel. Use a finger or two to hold it still. While maintaining this position, carefully pull on the pull start. As long as the glow plug stays removed, the pull start will be easier to pull. When it is pulled, the flywheel is bound to rotate along with the pulling motion. However, if the flywheel refuses to rotate after pulling the pull start, then it is loose and should be tightened appropriately. You can also check your clutch bell. It does not really have any effect on the engine. However, to prevent a stripped spur gear, you should check it out. It comes right after the flywheel in the form of a metal bell, so it should not be hard to identify. Now, repeat the same process above. Make the clutch bell stay still and try pulling the pull start. As you pull, if you notice something scraping against the metal within the clutch bell, the spring needs to be replaced. If not, your bell is fine. Proceed to the glow starter and glow plug. Before you can start a nitro car, the glow plug has to be functioning. As you try to start the car, ensure that you have clipped the car's glow start to the glow plug. Once it starts to glow, the fuel and air mixture within the engine is ignited. This ignition will start your engine. After this, unclip the glow start from the plug as its glow will be sustained by the nitro engine. As you know, a glow start can be recharged. In order to ensure that it lasts or hold a charge for longer, try not to overdo the charging. Follow the charging instructions that come with it. A 2 to 3 hours charge is often recommended. Again, to ensure that the glow plug will not fail you when you need your car, you should test it from time to time. The process is quite simple. You simply clip your glow starter to the glow plug. If you notice that the glow plug's brightness appears to have dulled, try charging the glow starter. On the other hand, it might be that glow plug will soon give up trying to serve you altogether. Since they are quite easy to acquire, it will be prudent to have few glow plugs lying around in order to replace a weak one when the need arises. Here is a helpful tip: using the right amount of fuel in the nitro engine can help to make the glow plug last longer. After the glow plug has been checked, use your wrench to reattach it to the nitro engine. Now, ensure that it is not screwed tightly or loosely. Loose glow plug means that your car will not start. Prime the nitro engine. To start a car, you have to prime the nitro engine with little fuel using the fuel tube and the carburetor. There are Nitro RC cars that come with fuel tanks that feature push buttons. The push button is usually located at the top of the tank. If you have this, you only have to keep pressing the button until you get enough fuel into the carburetor. For Nitro RC cars without buttons, another priming method is required. Make sure that the glow plug is not attached to the engine. Hold a finger against the end of the exhaust, turn the engine over continuously until you can see the fuel flowing through the tube into the carburetor. Another way to prime the engine is to repeat the process of placing a finger against the exhaust. Follow this by pulling the pull start once. As you do so, the fuel starts to flow from the tank into the tube and into the nitro engine. If one pull isn't enough, you can try it one more time. You just have to ensure that the engine does not end up being flooded. If this happens, you have to get rid of the excess fuel and start the priming process all over. As soon as you notice that enough priming fuel has entered the carburetor, secure the glow starter to the glow plug. Set the throttle to an idle mode and try to start the engine. Before you start the engine, make sure the car is not on the floor. You don't want the car to start driving way when you are not ready. Start the Nitro RC car. The starting can be done using varying methods. They include the electric start, drill start, pull start, battery box starter, and so on. The pull start method. As mentioned earlier, ensure that the RC car is not on the floor. If your finger had to be on the exhaust while priming the engine, it's time to remove it. Ensure that the glow starter is attached to the glow plug. The car must be firmly secured. Now, use your hand to pull the pull start. Try not to pull it the whole way. Don't exert too much pressure. With few pulls, the RC car should start immediately. However, if the engine refuses to start immediately, try priming it once more. Then go back to pulling. If your pull start is getting harder to pull, quit the pulling. Rest your hands and start the process again. Get rid of the previous fuel to prevent flooding and start the priming process again. You might also want to check if your carburetor hole is too open. The electric start method. Using an electric starter box. This is for RC cars that do not feature a pull start. Some of them come with a sort of opening that allows you to make contact with its flywheel. After priming the nitro engine, place the car on a starter box. This box has a rubber disc that spins and is powered by electricity. Once this rubber disc touches the car's flywheel, it starts to spin it. As soon as the rotation starts, the engine will start soon after. Make sure you always have a power source for the box. Using an electric shaft starter. An RC car that comes with an electric start feature often features a gearbox where a shaft on an electric motor can be plugged into. After insertion, you only have to push the button and it begins to spin the nitro engine until it starts. Once you have successfully started your RC car, make sure to detach the glow start from the glow plug. What you should watch out for after starting your Nitro RC car. Once you start it, the car wheels will begin to rotate slowly until it is placed on the ground, the rotation ceases. This is a good sign. However, if the car's engine revs up and its wheels are rotating a bit faster, something is up. The carb hole might be too open. This means the idle speed screw needs more screwing. As mentioned earlier, don't screw it tightly shut. This fast rotation can also mean that the carburetor hole has been shut tight and there isn't enough fuel. To resolve this, just adjust the high-speed needle. Leave the vehicle for a while before restarting it. Even if you've been using your RC car for a while, it is advisable to observe the procedures above before you attempt to start it. This is because constant use makes some of these integral components loose after a while. And soon, you won't be able to start the car. Each part has an important role they play in getting your RC car to move. And if you haven't used the car for a long time, each step is important. If you've enjoyed this video, click the subscribe button below. Hit the notification bell so you'll know once we post a new video. Also, drop a comment below so we can know your thoughts. Finally, don't forget to check the description below for more details. Visit our site zimcartoys.com for more awesome RC car tips like this.